We're live. It's the replay, everybody. No, it's live. It's the replay if you're watching the replay, but live if you're here. It's the SY0-501 Security Plus Study Group. It's the pre-show. We are getting things ready. We have 10 minutes to go. We start at the top of the hour. So won't be long now, 10 minutes, and we'll get going. Hello, chat room. Folks checked in early as I was setting up and cleaning up and starting recordings. There's two going here. There's one going up there. That looks good. You can see the video switching. You can see me. Hi. Hi, everybody. That's a live view. So you can kind of peek over my shoulder at what's coming there. So that's what you see on that. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on the replay, we get started about 10 minutes, so you can shift forward 10 minutes. Or if you are on YouTube, you can go to the YouTube video description. There'll be timestamps. You can just jump to it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. There's a lot of people there in the chat room. New York's here and Johannesburg. What mic am I using? This is the Heil PR40. You can find out what all this stuff is around me by going to professormesser.com/studio, and all the details are there. So you'll be able to get all of that. Weather here's nice, 62 degrees Fahrenheit here in Florida. Hello, Brazil and Iowa and St. Vincent and Nigeria and Louisville and Culver City, California, Houston, Texas, welcome. Ethiopia, Houston, Paris, France, welcome. 501 will be around until July 31st of 2021. So it'll be around for a while. You're stuck with it for a while till July. And I highly recommend you take the SY0-501 as long as you can. Highly recommend. The 601 is much bigger. Hello, Colorado Springs and Ohio twice. Columbus, welcome. They're in Dublin. Hello, Somalia and Maryland, my Maryland. Colorado's here and Utah, welcome. Hello, India, Miami. There's Coyote checking in. There's Dallas, Cincinnati, Somalia. More like the Big Bend of the 826. Dallas, more Maryland. Is it cooler up there in Maryland? 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Hello, Saudi Arabia and San Diego and Philly and New Delhi and Atlanta, just up the way. Hello, Dayton and Montreal. There's the Canadian folks. Thanks for being here. I will let Mrs. Professor Messer know. That's important. Well, you know, I use OBS to do the streaming. That's what's here. And it is kind of funny. We've got all of this gear here that did cost a pretty penny. And I tried to use commercial streaming software. I have a lifetime license for whatever that commercial product is that I'm not using. And it did not work very well at all. For some reason, it did not properly decode the audio coming off of the SDI that I have here. Because everything that you see here, all the video and audio runs over SDI. What is that, serial data interface? Which is all on coax. So there is this SDI card in a machine, and the software has to pull it off of that and take the audio and put it into something you can listen to, and it just could not do it. So I tried commercial software. There were some great advantages to doing that, but in the end, OBS actually just worked and just goes. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's up with that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there with the goatee. I have no idea. It's just sort of taking over. It's the cold weather is what it is. Thanks for being here, everybody. We do need a studio tour. That means that I have to actually do a studio. I have to fix the studio up. I have to clean it. Oh, looks like my keyboard has fallen apart right in the middle of what we're doing here. It fortunately can go right back together again. Let's fix that. Much better. Let's see what's going on with our status. We have 5 minutes to go. Audio is set. Let's Video looks good. Cameras are nice. You can actually see what I'm seeing camera-wise. The lower view here, this bottom row, actually the bottom 2 rows are the cameras. So I have 6 inputs. I have 6 video feeds, but these 2 here have nothing on them. I have 2 video feeds I'm not even using. So I've got head cam. That's the one you normally see of me. We've got the bird cam, which is what you are seeing right now. There's the iMac that is in front of me. You can see that matches. There is my laptop, which is over here. So the 4th one right there. It's a laptop. And then I've got an auxiliary display. This is actually set up, this aux, to send what's in my preview side. With these video switching systems, there is a preview, which is this larger box you can't really see on the top. That's what you don't see yet. And then there's the program, which you do see. So I hit a button here, and it flips between those 2. So I am recording what's on my program, and I'm recording what's on my auxiliary on a separate recording system that's down here on the right side. It's down here. That's the little Cylons that are going here. So that's why those 2 are there. And then lastly is just an OBS input. For no particular reason, I guess I could flip over to that and show it to you if you wanted, but then it would do something like that. So that's why I don't. So you've seen that before, though. You've been on Twitch. That's my Twitch camera. that's Twitch. It works on the preview side, so you can kind of see it on the preview side, but not on the other. Welcome, everybody. Get comfortable. We got all SY0-501 Security Plus, not 601 Security Plus at the moment, for reasons. I'll talk about those in just a bit. We'll get all of that going. Hi, Germany. Hi, France. Hi, Sacramento. Welcome, welcome. Oh, which voucher should you buy? I don't know. I have no idea. That's a question for CompTIA, I guess. What do they have on their website? Is it on the CompTIA voucher? Whatever their store is called. Buy exam vouchers. Go to the CompTIA store. Let's see what's there. I'll be taking my exam in North America in the United States. There we go. So let's choose Security Plus. Security Plus. Yeah, you're right. There's 2 of all. One's for the 501s, one's for the 601. So it depends on which exam you plan on taking. How come they just don't give you a voucher and you just take it for whichever one you want? That's why there's 2 of them. Because right now, you could take one of 2 different Security Plus exams. I would think if you're planning to take one right now, you have been studying for months to take your SY0-501, not the SY0-601. The SY0-601 was live on the 12th. So we sit here on, what is this, the 15th? So on the 18th. So on the 12th last week, it went live. So that's one of those things where even though the exam is live, there's no books. There's nothing to study from. There's nothing out there, which is, by the way, completely normal. That's the way this works. That's the way it usually works. I'll explain more in just a moment. The 501 will be retired on July 31st, 2021. So take the July 31st, 2021 date, work towards taking your 501 and pass your 501 before that date, and you'll be fine. That's my recommendation. We'll get going here in about 1 minute and 15 seconds. Am I ready, though? That's a really good question. I think I am. Do I have... I need to set up AC, air conditioning in here before it gets too warm. These lights make the room get a little bit warm. So we'll make sure. What are those machines bottom right? You must mean the little Cylons there. Those are video recording systems from Blackmagic. Studio, that's me. Let's bring it down to that. And if it gets warmer than that, it'll cool me off. How do you suggest getting better with the cryptography concepts for the 501? Well, I guess using them is the best thing you can do. Load up PGP, make yourself a public key and private key pair, and send me an encrypted message with PGP, and I'll send you one back. How about that? That's a good use of it. That's a good way to do some practice. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. We've got I think we're ready. I think it's top of the hour, everybody. Let's click this. Let's bring up our keynote. Let's wait for the green light. Do we have a green light? We do. Let's hit the play button. That looks phenomenal. Let's do a live stream, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 2020 Professor Messer SY0-501 Security Plus Study Group. This is our monthly study group where I ask you questions from the Security Plus exam, and you can answer live and online. If you are here, I'll tell you how to do that in just a moment. We've got so much to go through today. I've got all of these questions about the new Security Plus exam that launched just last week. We'll talk all about that in just a moment. For you to join us live, and you can answer live if you are here. If you're on the replay, this won't work, but if you're watching us live, you can follow along with us. Go to professormesser.com/QA. That's the link. Pop open a new browser window and go to that link. There'll be a question waiting for you right there on that window. The other thing that you can do is, if you like an app to do this with, go to your favorite app store and look for the Socrative student app. Folks at Socrative are the ones that have the service here that we're able to use to ask you these questions, and it is their student app that allows you to do that on your mobile device. It will ask you for a room name. Make sure you type in the right room name of Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. And if you do all of that and it works, there'll be a question waiting for you that asks, not that question. I'm not even sure what that question is. Not the question we were looking for. It's this question, which says, do I even have the right thing up? Now, I'm wondering, don't you love a live event? Like, what am I doing? What day is it? What's my name? Let's see. You should be seeing the one that's on your screen right now, which says an attacker is not able to embed malicious JavaScript into an online forum post, which the following would be the most likely reason for this, is that input validation, stored procedures, obfuscation, code signing, or encryption. Now, that doesn't seem like that's the right question, but that is what I see up here. So we are in good shape. Now, the real question is, do I even have the right presentation on my side? Oh, it's a real good question. And I don't. No, I don't. That's why you don't even see the right presentation in front of you. Well, this is going to be a very short study group then. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'll load up the right one here in just a moment. You know, one of the things that as you go through this and answering that question, we will come back to that in just a moment. One of the things you need to remember, though, is not to put the question in the chat room. You instead want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. That's what you want to do. So please don't put answers into the chat room. We'll figure this out as we go, though. It's our first question of the day. It's one of those we have to kind of work through all of the details and figure out what's going on. That's one of the things I like to do as we're going through this. And as we go through this, I would like to, if you'll bear with me in just a moment, I'm going to bring up the latest version of this presentation. It makes all the difference when you have the right thing in front of you. We're going to sync it up. Maybe I could just share it from my other computer. Let's do that. Let's go to my computer. Nope, not screen sharing. Now we're really going to have a mess in front of us. Let's do this. Let's go back to this view. Lock in your answer. ProfessorMesser.com/QA is the link you want. That will get you exactly where you need to go. Try that out. I think that will get you to where you want to be able to break down all of those details and figure out what you want to see. Let's see if I can get to the presentation. I'm trying to bring up the right one so that you can see the right things as well. It's one of those where you think you have everything ready to go when you go live. And then as it turns out, maybe you don't really so much. So we'll figure it out. There we go. Am I connected? I am connected. We have plenty to go through today. I have a question that came up in the chat room earlier about the new SY0-501 exam. And the thing that came up, the question that came up was about the version of the exam right now. You'll notice that if you go to the CompTIA website, and we did this just before you joined, there are actually 2 exam vouchers available, one for the SY0-501 and one for the SY0-401. And one of the questions that came up is, which one do you choose? Well, you choose the one that you would be using or that you would be taking when you're ready to take the exam. So pick the one that matches. You don't want to choose the wrong voucher. And it's kind of surprising that they chose to do this vouchers this way. I was not expecting them to be able to offer both of them. Usually they offer a single voucher, and then you can choose which exam to take. But in the CompTIA store, you have to choose the right one. Now, one of the questions that people were asking also from earlier is that the SY0-501 and the SY0-601 are available right now. The 601 released last week. The thing that you need to remember is that there's no study materials, effectively no study materials available for the SY0-601 yet. So even though you can take a newer exam, there's nothing to study from. And the newer exam is so much newer and bigger that it's 30% larger. Half of the material is brand new. So if you were to study from older materials and walk in to take the SY0-601, you're going to fail your exam. It's really that simple. So don't be caught in that scenario. You don't want to be in a situation where you're now walking into an exam that you studied the wrong version. Always study from materials that match the version of the exam you're going to take. Now, why aren't there study materials available for the 601 yet? The thing that usually happens, and this is a completely normal process, CompTIA releases the exam objectives, and then it's up to all of the publishers and content creators like myself to create training materials for this. Well, that takes some time. Especially on an exam that is now 30% larger and half of the content is brand new. So not only, we can't really reuse a lot of what we had, we have to build brand new study content. And so it takes a long time to create the study content. It takes effectively, it takes months and months and months and months to do this. And that's why you'll notice if you go to Amazon that 601 books are not going to be available until probably January, March timeframe. So as we sit here in November, that's a number of months away. And that's just one of the reasons why I always recommend that you always take the version that has the most number of study materials available. So if you are studying for your your Security Plus right now, take the SY0-501. That's my standard response right now, because that's the only thing you have available to study from. You do not want to go take that SY0-601. That would be an exceptionally bad idea right now. Now, at some point, there will be a lot of study materials on the market. You will be able to go and take the SY0-601 and be able to gather a lot of 601 materials. I have finished writing my course. I'm in the process of building out course notes, and we're going to start shooting video here shortly. So by the time the end of the year comes along, you'll start to see more and more people have released more and more content for the 601. Again, this is just the normal process. Now, the 601, although I don't think it's going to be much more complex or difficult. I don't think they changed the difficulty level of the exam so much. But because it is larger, it is effectively more difficult. It's 30% more exam objectives than the 501. So that's another thing that you should probably think about. If you're planning to take an exam, do you want to study 30% more? Well, then you may want to wait for the 601. There's also no good reason to wait, by the way. For those of you that have looked into these exams, you know it doesn't matter which exam you take. You earn the Security Plus certification regardless of which exam you take. So that's one of those situations where you also want to think about, what am I going to see on the certification when I get it? Will it be a 501 certification or a 601 certification? It won't be either, because those things don't happen. The SY0-501 will retire on July 31st, 2021. So you got plenty of time for that. So feel free to go through all of that and figure out the details of it. Hopefully that will help you as well. If you're ever in the process of trying to figure out which one of these do I take the one that makes sense for what you're doing right now. I think that's pretty much the most important part of that as you go through this. Also want to let you know that if you're on my site and you've been sort of trying to find materials to study for this SY0-501, they're all on my site. All my videos are available for you to watch absolutely free, so feel free to have a look at all of those. You can find details about that on my site at professormesser.com/501SB. Plenty to see there as well. Whenever you start looking around for materials, the key is just to make sure they match the version of the exam you're going to take. I've also got free questions on my site. You can find those at professormesser.com/take10. So if you're studying for the A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus, that's a great place to do it as well. There's also a replay of this study group available afterwards at professormesser.com/podcast. Also videos. The video version is available on YouTube if you'd like that instead of the audio version. And my marketing manager, Lori, hi, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. She's having to watch this and take timestamps and be able to put those timestamps on the YouTube description. So make sure that you have a look at that. It really helps you find exactly what you're looking for as you go through the video descriptions. Also, I released a new video, might help you this week, 5 more reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. This is another add-on video. A lot of people watched my first video, which was 5 reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. And as I was researching for the first one, I found there was more than 5. There was many more than 5. So I found another 5 that makes a lot of sense. So have a look at both of those. If you're someone who's in the process of sending your resume out, watch these 2 videos before you do that. You can find it at professormesser.link/5 more, or just find it on my YouTube channel. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier, which is correctly, an attacker is not able to embed malicious JavaScript into an online forum post. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this? Let me see if I can put my head on the screen. There we go. And let's see how you did. Was it input validation, stored procedures, obfuscation, code signing, or encryption? 80% of you say it is input validation. And this was our question from last month. So this is our rewind question to see, are we able to get an answer to the questions? Are we able to do everything we should be able to do in the Q&A? And we are. It's exactly what it is. Input validation is what we were looking for. This is the process of looking through the input and making sure it matches what is expected for the application on this particular device. It's one of those situations where sometimes the bad guys can find an application that is not properly validating the input and then can find security problems and vulnerabilities around that. Hopefully that got you ready to go on your questions for this study group. Now, instead of going and looking at our previous questions, let's do a brand new question. And as many of you are aware, I have a brand new performance-based question every month. This is our performance-based question of the month. And some of you may not be familiar. When you sit down to take your exam, there are more than just multiple choice questions. This was a multiple choice question where I ask you a question and there's multiple choices available. But you're going to get a handful of questions at the beginning of your exam that are anything but multiple choice. They might be a fill in the blank. They might be a matching question. You might have to put things in a particular order, or they may ask you a question like the one that I have right now, which is a question that asks, if I have it on my screen, is this a hash algorithm, block cipher, or key stretching library? See if I can push the right buttons on your side so that you can answer this. So I have these 5 different, really is the six different hash algorithm, block ciphers, or key stretching libraries on my screen. I want you to tell me which one of these is which. So of those 3 categories, hash algorithm, block cipher, key stretching, go through each of these. The 6 different options are MD5, CTR, RIPE-MD, ECB, bcrypt, and SHA. Now, this is clearly, for the most part, an SY0-501 question because they took a lot of these algorithms out of the Security Plus exam. So you no longer have to, I know it's bad. It's kind of bad to tell everyone you want to take this exam. Then I tell you they took out all that crazy memorization stuff. They took out all of those encryption, hashing, libraries, all of that. It's gone. All the block ciphers. They're not all the block ciphers. They left the block ciphers in. Not sure what's going on there. But they know what they're doing, clearly, And I'm pretty happy they took out a lot of the rote memorization. When you start working in security, one of the things you notice is the same things just keep cropping up. After a while, this just becomes second nature. You don't have to memorize all of the different encryption algorithms. You are completely overwhelmed with them on a daily basis. So that's why I have the list of things here. Hash algorithm, block cipher, or key stretching library, MD5, CTR, RIPE-MD, ECB, bcrypt, and SHA. Those are the 6 different options. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock that in. That might help you too as you go through all of these. I think whenever I start going in and trying to figure out what the right answers are, you may be able to know what one is not. And in this case, you're choosing between 3 different things. If you know which one a particular item isn't, then now you're down to 50-50. So that might help you as well as you go through this. Hash algorithm, block cipher, or key stretching library. Lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA and stop Googling this. I see what you're doing. No Googling. This is probably an easier one to Google to figure out all of these. Some of you are just answering one thing. Oh, that's bcrypt. That's not what I'm looking for. For each one of those, I need an answer. So lock in each one of those, or take a guess. Yes, you might be able to do that as well to find all of those. Lock in your answer, professormesser.com/QA. Let's step through each one of these and see how we did. Let's start with MD5. MD5, if you've ever worked with MD5, that's a hash. That is Message Digest 5. So if you're ever seeing MD5 somewhere, it's referring to a hashing algorithm. Second on our list was CTR. That is the counter block cipher. So the counter block cipher, also another one of those. It is an encryption mechanism. It takes a block of data and creates an output block of data that is encrypted. So the CTR is a block cipher. RIPE-MD. RIPE-MD, doctor. It's not a doctor. It's a hash. It is the Race Integrity Primitives Evaluation Message Digest. Now you can start to see why I'm kind of glad you don't have to memorize a lot of these anymore. The important thing is not necessarily what those letters mean, but instead what those letters do. And those letters are a hash. That is the important part of this particular question. Next on our list was ECB. ECB, if you know that it's electronic code book, you can probably figure out that that is a block cipher. Electronic code book is indeed a block cipher. We'll put that into the block cipher category. Fifth on our list is bcrypt. Bcrypt is a key stretching library, very commonly used by developers who want to make their passwords a little more secure. You can use bcrypt. That's one use of key stretching. Makes it very easy to use. And last on our list is SHA, S-H-A. SHA is a hash, the secure hash algorithm. The answer's in the name. So if you happen to know that algorithm, that particular algorithm and what those letters stand for, kind of fixes all of those to have all of those. Hopefully that will help you too as you go through this and work through those hash algorithms, block ciphers, key stretching library, the symmetric block modes. Those are ciphers. I know they call them modes. It's a cipher. That's what it does. It's an algorithm. Sort of a common term, but yes, we call them modes because we are scientific. We are very hoity, and calling them modes makes us sound like we know what we're talking about. So hopefully you're familiar with those. If you're going to take the SY0-501, you need to know all of these. If you're planning on the SY0-601 eventually, which you should not be at this point, then you don't have to know all of these. But this is going to be an SY0-501 study group. So everything we're going to talk about is from the 501 exam. Hopefully you're familiar with some of those at least. And if you're not, make a note of them. Make sure you go back to the exam objectives and learn every single one of those. Let's move on now to a multiple choice based question. The next question on our list asks us, which of the following would be the best way to prevent physical access to a server in a third-party colocation data center? Which of the following would be the best way to prevent physical access to a server in a third-party colocation data center? Is it a Faraday cage? Is it bollards? Is it video surveillance? Is it a safe? or is it a locking cabinet? You think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. You've got a few options there. And one of the things that you, of course, need to know on your exam are things relating to physical access. So this is definitely a physical access question. If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA, follow that link on your screen, and lock in what you think this answer happens to be. Some of you may already have worked in a third-party co-location data center. I've worked in a number of them. So this is something you may remember from having all of those there, to figure out which of the following would be the best way to prevent physical access to a server in a third-party co-location data center. Is it a Faraday cage? Is it bollards? Is it a video surveillance? Is it a safe, or is it a locking cabinet? Lots of options there. See if you know what it happens to be. Go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer, and you'll be able to figure out what all of these things are. Hopefully you're familiar with working. If you haven't worked in a data center or a third-party co-location data center, they are remarkable. Huge facilities, lots of different people doing a lot of different things. So let's see if you can be familiar with what these happen to be. Let's see how we did. No, they're not. It's not underground. It's not a data center in the earth. Not usually, anyway. There's probably quite a few data centers that are in the earth, but no, they're usually just a building. There's some usually a building that is not marked. You will find that most large data centers have no signs at all anywhere. All you have is like the address, 123 Main Street. That's it. That's all you know about this. You have to walk up and go, hey, is this the data center? Oh, yeah, come on in. Let's get your ID. Let's get you started. Let's see how you did with this. Which of the following be the best way to prevent physical access to a server at a third-party co-location data center, or just a data center in general? But I thought I'd add a little flavor to this one. Is it a Faraday cage? Is it bollards? Is it video surveillance? Is it a safe, or is it a locking cabinet? How do we do? 72% of us say it's a locking cabinet. 11% say it's a Faraday cage. 9% said video surveillance. 4% said a bollard, and 3% said a safe. One of the things in these data centers, especially a third-party co-location data center, is that a lot of people are coming into the data center all the time. And because it's a third-party data center, the data center is usually owned by one organization, and the people putting their equipment in that data center are all different companies. So usually there is, if you want to put it that way, a physical cage around all of your materials, but it's not a Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is designed to block radio signals, to block electromagnetic interference, to block any type of radio electromagnetic frequencies from going in and out. That's not, a Faraday cage is not designed to lock you out or into a particular area to have all of that there. So Faraday cage, not the answer we were looking for. 72% of you said locking cabinet, and that's because it's a locking cabinet. That's what you do. If you're going to have your equipment in a place where other people might be, then you want to be sure that you're able to lock it up and nobody else can get in there, because you can't stand next to your equipment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, you'll probably rarely be in that data center. The idea is the data center is probably in some centralized place in the world. You put your equipment in that centralized place. You might live many, many hours away somewhere. You might be a plane flight away. So you put the equipment there, put everything you need to be able to manage it, to power it on and off, to be able to do whatever you need to do, all right there in that room without you having to be there. Well, if you're not going to be there, how do you protect it? Well, you put in a locking cabinet. And that way you can make sure that you are the only one to be able to gain access to those systems. Here's a good example of it, actual data center. And you can see this one is completely locked up, although not quite as secure as you would think, because they left the keys there in the door. So you can unlock that one. But as long as there are panels between each one of these, this one doesn't seem to have panels between that one, locks it up pretty well. But this is where you would lock all of those up and nobody would have access to any of those. That's what you want to do, to be able to lock up your data center. And that way only the people with the key can get into that particular equipment. Pretty normal to have that type of configuration, especially in a data center environment. It doesn't even have to be a third-party data center. Very common to be able to do that. So hopefully that can help you as you go through this. That is the right answer. It is the locking cabinet. It would not be the Faraday cage. We talked about why that would be. 9% said video surveillance. Video surveillance isn't going to stop somebody from physically accessing a server. It would allow you to watch somebody as they are rifling through all of your things, but it would not stop them from rifling all of the things. So video surveillance isn't going to help you very much at all. 4% of you said bollards. 4% of you said a safe. Bollards are those large devices or large, usually pieces of concrete or poles that would be outside a facility that would block you or people or cars from being able to get into those. And then a safe, of course, is where you might store things behind a lock and key. But we really don't put our computer equipment in a safe. Then we wouldn't have any access to it, and it wouldn't have any access to the outside world. Usually it's a locking cabinet like this one that allows you to do that. Hopefully that could, if you had enough, you're right. If you had enough bollards and you stack them up all around your equipment, but then how do you get into it? Oh, there's always a problem. Eventually, the whole thing falls apart. So probably not the best answer, is it? Best answer, locking cabinet. If you answered E, locking cabinet, you got that one absolutely right. Let's do another question. More security plus. This one applies to both the 501 and the 601. Let's do another one. This question asks, which of the following would best describe something you have? Would that be a smart card, a signature, a fingerprint, a password, or an IP address? Which of the following would best describe something you have? Is it a smart card, a signature, a fingerprint, a password, or an IP address? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Hopefully that will get you to the right place. You'll be able to see the answer there. If you're watching this live, you'll be able to see the answer there, and you will be able to go through this and, of course, put your right answer in. Now, if you're watching this on the replay, you don't have access to this. You're not able to do that. But you could, of course, follow along with us, and you'll be able to see, if you remember the one you chose, you'll be able to see it at the end of this. Which of these would be the right one? This is where you want to go if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out these different something you have type of questions. You should at least have some options there. Know in your mind what some of these things happen to be. That might help you as well as you go through this. See if you know what those are. These questions are in here and available for you to be able to click through it. Just remember what you chose, because when you choose the answer, you can't see which one you choose after the fact, and then you can't go back for those either. So that's why whenever you work through this, it might be a problem to work through all of that. So hopefully that would be, no, you can't select multiple. You should not be selecting multiple on this one. I don't think I set it up for multiple, but only one answer is here. It's not saying there's multiple. No, it says which would be the best. It automatically is telling you that it would not be the multiple. So feel free to go through that, figure out the details. To have all of those. Whenever you start going through this and figuring out these particular answers, these are questions that are referencing you, or at least giving you a reference point for things you should know for the exam. The exam is going to be a little bit more difficult than some of the question types I have here, because the exam has much longer questions. The questions on the exam are so big, so you have to really read through them. I'll give you an example of one of these in just a moment. So if you're interested in that, I'll tell you all about it. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, which of the following would best describe something you have? Would it be a smart card, signature, fingerprint, password, or IP address? And how did we do? 79% of us say it's a smart card is what we were looking for, although 14% said fingerprint is something you have. 3% said password, 2% said signature, 2% said IP address, effectively a three-way tie for third to be able to have this here. This is, of course, a multi-factor authentication question, which is describing, of course, the different factors you would use to be able to authenticate. So as you go through and figuring out what all these happen to be, This is one where you have to know something you are, something you have, something you know, somewhere you are, something you do. And there's more. They're even categorized a little bit differently on the 601. So if you're studying or thinking of studying for the 601, which I still think is a bad idea, if you're still thinking of studying for the 601, you have to know even more of these. I mentioned the 601's bigger. That's a good example of it. It's bigger to have that there. Hopefully that would be something as you work through it and trying to figure out what these happen to be. Let's try also, the question was talking about something you have. This is something physical that you have with you. So this would be something like a smart card. This would be something like a USB key. It may be something like those little tokens or hardware generator, or even your phone. This is one where if you're ever in a situation where you're working through all the details of this, your phone is something you have, something I have all the time. So this is a good example of why your phone would have been a good answer on this one, as something you have. But it's something physical you have with you. It's also something you could not have with you. Something you forgot at home is usually what I would describe this authentication factor of. So this is a good example of something you have, or something you forgot is the same thing as something you have. So smart card would fit into this. So make sure you're familiar with these different factors of authentication. You could be asked about any of these on the exam. Make sure you're familiar with that. Smart card is indeed something you have. If you step through all of these, a signature is something you do because you're doing the signature over and over. When you're signing a signature, it's very unique to you. It's something you do. A fingerprint is something you are, because it's something that you can't get away from. It's a biometric, like a fingerprint, like a handprint, like an iris print. That is something you are. Password, something you know. That is not something you have. It's something that's in your brain that only you know about. And an IP address is somewhere you are. So of each one of the factors you have to know, I put into this particular answer. The only one here that best describes something you have is smart card. That is the answer A. 79% of you got that one absolutely right. Let's do another one. Next multiple choice question on our list asks, what type of disaster recovery location would provide hardware and network connectivity, but none of the recovery data? Would that be a hot site, a primary site, an archive site, a warm site, or a standby site? What type of disaster recovery location would provide hardware and network connectivity, but none of the recovery data? Is it a hot site, primary site, archive site, warm site, or standby site? If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Hopefully that will help you as you go through this, figuring out what those questions might be, those answers are. You got 5 to choose from. On your exam, you don't usually get 5 to choose from. Usually it's 4. Some questions ask you out of a list of 5. Some may be even more than that. Some questions ask you for multiple answers, but they tell you how many answers they would like. So they might say, pick 2 or pick 3. And then they give you a big list you have to pick 2 or 3 from. So very, very good to have that type of feedback on your exam. So at least you know how many to ask about. What type of disaster recovery location would provide hardware and network connectivity, but none of the recovery data? See if you happen to know what it is. Lock in the answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. Figure out all of those. This is one, as you are trying to figure it out, this is also a question that is a 501 question and a 601 question. So I happen to choose one that applied here to both of those exams. I mentioned last week that maybe we would just do 601 questions from this point on, since the 601 exam is around, but there's just no books available. And the 501 exam doesn't retire until July 31st of 2021. So we'll probably do at least one more month. Maybe back, once we get to January, I'll evaluate whether it makes sense to do a 601 exclusive study group. We'll have to see. We have such a large number of study groups available in the archives. So that would be the reason for that, to have all of that. Let's see how we do with this question. It asked, what type of disaster recovery location would provide hardware and network connectivity, but none of the recovery data? Would it be a hot site, a primary site, an archive site, a warm site, or a standby site? We had 61% of you chose warm site. We had 23% of you chose standby site, and 10% said hot site. Only 5% said primary. Only 2% said archive. Well, this is a situation where there's a disaster that has occurred. You've arrived at the disaster recovery center, and you now need to get everything back up and running. When you walk in, there are racks of hardware, tons of servers available there, lots of content available for you to pull from, or hardware to choose from, all of the hardware that you selected, but none of your data, none of your backup tapes are there or backup media is there. And because of that, it's not a site that is completely empty. That would be a cold site. It's not a site that is just ready to go with all of your data and all of the hardware and everything. You just push a button and you're running. That would be a hot site. So it's somewhere in the middle. It will be a warm site. So you've got just enough hardware to get things going, but you don't have any of the data. You have to bring your software. You have to bring the applications. You have to bring the data. You have to have everything there to be able to get everything back up and running. So in this particular case, that's the scenario we found ourselves in, where we walked into a disaster recovery location. We had a hardware connectivity. We had a bunch of hardware turned on. We had the networks running, but no data, no applications, nothing there to pull from. That is indeed a warm site. If you asked D, warm site, that would be the right answer. Some of you asked or put standby site, not an actual site type, just one I made up. I made up standby and I made up primary, and I made up archive. So none of those are real disaster recovery sites. The three types of availability for disaster recovery sites are hot, cold, and warm. So the only choices you really had here are between a hot site and a warm site. I didn't want to put cold in here because I felt that would have led you down the road of figuring out that it was warm. So this is one. Does the exam make up answers too? It absolutely does. It absolutely at times will give you answers that are completely made up of things. So there are such things as an archive site. I guess you could call it that. If you put your backup somewhere, maybe you could call that your archive site. But in the terms of disaster recovery, there's no such thing as an archive site. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about disaster recovery, to have all of those there. The Security Plus exam does indeed have networking related questions, not subnetting, because subnetting is not in the exam objectives. There's network questions. There's questions like this one that talk about disaster recovery. There's questions about troubleshooting with security. There's questions about encryption. There's all kinds of questions on the exam. What I have found, though, is that there are not situations that you would run into, or things you would find on the internet anyway. There's questions that are out there that you can find that just aren't very good. And so one of the things I did is I wrote a set of practice exam questions specifically designed to really give you the feel of the actual exam. And I think that was the key for me, is that I wanted to give you the same feeling as the actual exam. And that's one of the things that I think was, if you're actually working towards the exam, it would be nice to test yourself with questions that had kind of the same feel as actual exam questions. Let me give you an example of this. I have one of these questions up from my book. So let's step through these to figure out these. The question asks, Taylor is a help desk administrator for a major transportation company. Her help desk has suddenly been overwhelmed by phone calls from customers. The customers are complaining that their browser is giving a message that the company's website is untrusted. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Is it the web server is not running the latest version of software? Is it the corporate firewall is misconfigured? Is it a content filter is blocking web server traffic? Or is it that the web server has a certificate issue? Now, already you can see as we step through this that there are first things very obvious. It's a big, long question to read. So the questions on this exam are not questions that are simply asking you a single line of content. They are asking you for a lot more than just give me a description or give me a definitional type answer. You don't get a lot of trivia to be able to work through these. So this is a very good example of this. Now, this is directly from my practice exams book. So you've got this on here that you could pull from. One of the things you'll see here is that you can look at the direct answers on page 37. We're only on page 15 here, or look at the details on page 54. But these links in here are live links. So I can go to the details and click on that, and it takes me to that page of the book. So there's the question from that web server software, blah, blah, blah. It gives me the answer, and the answer is D, the web server certificate issues. And then I explain why that is the right answer. So this is a good example of giving you feedback on why that answer is right. My problem, though, my problem with a lot of the study materials I find out on the internet is it doesn't tell you why you're wrong. And I always get them wrong. I choose the wrong thing, and I want to know why they're wrong. Well, in my book, I go through every incorrect answer, and I tell you why every incorrect answer was the wrong answer, so that you're never going to have to wonder, well, I chose B, the corporate firewall is misconfigured. Why is that not the right answer? Well, let me explain to you why that's not the right answer. And we'll go through this and explain that, well, a firewall will be expected to either block or allow traffic to the web server. In this example, the issue is related to the trust between a browser and a web server, and that's why it would not be that the corporate firewall is misconfigured. Also, lastly in here is a link with a QR code. You can even put your phone up to this right now on the camera and take that link. It will take you to Objective 2.3 Common Security Issues, which is the exam objective associated with this particular question. There is a direct link if you want to type it in. If you got the physical version of the practice exam, this is the physical version of the book. It's at exactly the same thing. It's a big book. It's like 400 pages. But this is one where if you have the actual book, you can use your phone with the book, and it will jump to that particular link as well. So you've got a few choices there. And then I can hit the back button in my browser, click, and it goes back to where I was, and I can take the next question on this list. So there is plenty to pour through as you go through these practice exams. This is another thing that might help you. If you'd like to learn more about this, go to ProfessorMesser.com/securityPE. Stands for Security Practice Exams. That's another one that might help you as you're going through this. And maybe that will help you for your Security Plus exam too. I always say that you need to take a lot of Q&A, as much Q&A as you can before walking into the exam. This might be something that can help you too. Let's do another question on our list. This one is a certificate question, and this one asks, a security administrator is managing a certificate labeled EV, Echo Victor. What type of certificate is this? Is that a web server certificate, a user certificate, a root certificate, an email certificate, or a code signing certificate? A security administrator is managing a certificate labeled EV. What type of certificate is this? Is it for a web server, a user, root, email, or code signing? If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. You'll be able to answer what you think that certificate is used for. This is actually a tougher question than you might think right now. I don't want to give too much away on this one to figure it out, but it is in the exam objectives, so of course you need to know about it. In fact, you'll probably run into this on certain sites. It's remarkable. No, I'm not going to say anything. I was about to give you another hint. We're not going to do it. Don't search for it. No Googling. No Googling. You want to go through and figure out what this happens to be, and all of these as you work through it. So maybe that will help you as well as you go through this. I think these are good questions to also get you thinking about what type of answers might apply to some of these questions. So hopefully, if you're not familiar with any of those, all of those are real certificate types. So web server, user, root, email, and code signing are all real types. So if you don't know what any of those are referring to, go back and see if you can figure out what this is, or write down, see if you can do some research later on, because you do need to know what each one of those is. Let's see this. EV, an EV certificate, to have this here. A number of you are locking in your answer. Let's see how you do this as you step through it. I want to go through this also and figure out the details of this. Let's see how you did with this. The question asked, a security administrator is managing a certificate labeled EV. What type of certificate is this? Is it a web server, a user, a root, an email, or is it a code signing certificate? All real certs. You answered. How do we do? Well, we're all over the place. We're just not sure. So those of you that were looking for a more difficult question, you got one. This is 28% said web server, 25% said email, 24% said code signing. It's effectively a three-way tie for first. 15% said it's a root certificate, and 7% said it's a user certificate. Well, first you have to know what an EV is. EV is a certificate that is used on a web server. So the 28% of you that chose web server got that one right. EV stands for extended validation. This used to be the thing on your web servers. As somebody who has a website and has to get certificates for your website to be able to work through this. The EV is one that you are often asked about purchasing because the extended validation certificates not only put the lock on the screen to show you it was encrypted, but it would also put the name of the organization in green in the browser. So it was not just encrypted, it was encrypted and really told you it was encrypted. And it was green, which made you feel that there must be some good encryption. Green is good, right? So it made it green on the screen with the name of the company and took up all that room in your browser, on the browser address. Now you'll notice it's not around anymore. You go to things like Bank of America, which is where I pulled the screenshot from 4 years ago. You go to Bank of America now, it doesn't do that. The browsers don't show the extended validation anymore. In fact, the only way to know that it even might still be an extended validation certificate is you have to go into the details of the cert and pull out the specific IDs for extended validation. The browsers don't tell you it's extended validation anymore. And that's because it used to be very unusual for a website to be encrypted. It was not the norm. It was only put on certain pages or on certain sites. But now everybody's site's encrypted. In fact, Google gives you better ranking if you are encrypted, if everything on your site is encrypted. If you go to ProfessorMesser.com and you try to go to the non-encrypted site at ProfessorMesser.com, it redirects you over. So every page on ProfessorMesser.com is encrypted. All of my sites are. ProfessorMesser.link for the links that you use, ProfessorMesser.com, and others that I have out there that I do other things with, because now you can get certificates for free. You have all of those different services out there to get free certificates. Nobody cares about the extended validations. The browsers don't tell you anything about extended validation. It's effectively a technology that still exists that we just simply don't use any longer. But it's still something you might run into. So if you are on an older server and you're having to update the certificate, and in fact, somebody who doesn't realize that extended validation just isn't even used anymore may even tell you, hey, make sure you get an EV cert. You say, why? Browser's not going to tell you. Nobody even knows whether it's an EV cert or not to have those there. So that's why that's there. I know that we say SSL when we talk about certificates, web server, SSL certificates. Well, whenever you hear somebody talking about SSL in the technology world, we're really talking about SSL and TLS. Yes, technically speaking, the SSL series of encryption protocols are no longer used and you should not be using them. But whenever you hear some of us talk about SSL, we're talking about the combination of what is effectively now TLS. It's just so much harder to say TLS. Do you have your TLS certificate or do you have your SSL certificate? So much easier. That's why we never changed what we said. We changed what we meant when we say SSL. So make sure that if you're in a situation, you're not quite certain if they're talking about SSL, which nobody does anymore because nobody should be using it. That's what we're talking about, to have all of those there. So the right answer in this case, that was a long explanation of extended validation certificates, but that's why web server is the right answer, and EV cert is used on a web server. EV certs are not used on root servers. It's not a root certificate. Root certificate is the starting core certificate in a certificate authority server, CA. That root certificate is not extended validation. It's not used for extended validation, so it would never be used to have that. It would not be a user certificate, would not be used for email, would not be used for code signing. It was specifically used to put up that green notice in a browser bar. That's it. To have that there. That's the only reason EV was there. They charged you incredible amounts of money to have that little green thing show up. So it's they lost a lot of money when we stopped using EV. But when I think Google was the first one to take it out of the Chrome browser, and then everybody else followed suit. And as it turns out, everything's encrypted, and we know to look for locks. We sort of changed the way we worked in a very short period of time. This is in the 501 exam objectives. The objective's about 4 years old at this point. A lot changed with encryption in just 4 years. So it's remarkable what has really been going on in that period of time. If you're taking the 501 exam, it is still in the exam objectives. You still need to know about it. EV is one of those things you do need to know. So that's, if you did answer A, web server, 31%, got that one absolutely right. Let's do another question. I've got one for you here. We'll adjust ourselves a little bit and ask a question that says, which of the following would be a source of active reconnaissance? Would that be Facebook pages, dumpster diving, Reddit forums, newspaper archives, or a ping scan? Which of the following would be a source of active reconnaissance? Would it be Facebook pages, dumpster diving, Reddit forums, newspaper archives, or a ping scan? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA, lock it in, figure out the details of all of those. Might help you as you go through all of this. Which of the following would be a source of active reconnaissance? Now, it has the terminology active reconnaissance is used differently on the 601 exam, but the content is still in the 601 exam. So that is one of those cases. We're only looking for one answer on here. Yes. Which of the following would be a source of active reconnaissance? Just like the Security Plus exam, you will only be asked to select multiple answers if it specifically states it in the question. So if there were multiple answers here, it would say select 3, select 2, select 4, even tells you how many you should know. Should you take the new version if you recently took the older version? No, if you took the SY0-501 and passed, you're done. You do not have to take another Security Plus exam ever, ever, ever again, thankfully. As long as you just keep renewing it, you'll never take it. There's people that took the 301 exam or the 401 exam that constantly renew it and they'll never have to take the exam again. So there's plenty of Security Plus certified people today that took 2 exams, 3 exams ago and just keep renewing it. And that's really what it's designed to do. So you shouldn't have to be able to do. Yeah, when you sign up for your exam, you're signing up for the version that you're going to take. So make sure you pick the right one when you sign up for the exam. That will be pretty important. Have I noticed any difference in material covered in the older version to the newer one? Oh, yeah. Half of it's new, and it's 30% bigger. It's a completely new exam. Completely new content. Do not study. If you're study for the 501, it's around till July. You'll be fine. Study for that one. Trust me, it's in your best interest. Which of the following, I have a video on this, by the way. If you go to my YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube, one of the videos, one of the last 4 or 5 that I published was why you should not wait for the SY0-601 exam. And I go through every single reason why, including the top questions I get. But what about this? But what about that? But what about this? Well, I don't care. I'm taking it anyway. I tell you why you would want or not want to do that as well. And the advantages and disadvantages. Ultimately, you get to decide which one you'd like to take. It's your money. It's your time. But at least I'm thinking most of us are trying to get certified for a reason, and you should probably find the easiest way to do that. And you've got until July. So there's plenty of time on here. So that's why I recommend that. Is pick a topic covered in the 501. Grab the CompTIA exam objectives. It'll tell you exactly what's on the exam. That's an important one. So let's, on this one, see if we know the answer to this. Which of the following would be a source of active reconnaissance? Would it be Facebook pages, dumpster diving, Reddit forums, newspaper archives, or a ping scan? 66% of you say a ping scan is an active recon There's also 20% of you, good number, said dumpster diving is active reconnaissance. 12% of you say Facebook pages, 2% said Reddit, 1% said newspaper archives. Well, dumpster diving would certainly probably be an activity, but it is not active reconnaissance. Active reconnaissance is when you are actively on the network creating some type of activity on the network that could be logged, that could be seen, that could be captured. So active reconnaissance is one of those, like a ping scan, a port scan, a DNS query, operating system fingerprinting, like you would do in something like Nmap, an OS scan, version scans, service scans, also Nmap features. All of these things are querying a server. There's packets going over the network. If somebody is watching, collecting, logging, and in some way is able to identify that traffic, that's active reconnaissance. So you want to avoid letting anyone know that you're doing recon. So you want to be sure that nobody sees this activity on the network. This is an online function, this reconnaissance, active or passive. Active means you are online sending network traffic. And there is such a thing as passive reconnaissance. In fact, all the other things that we have here are passive reconnaissance. Go into somebody's Facebook page. They have no idea you're on their Facebook page. That's passive. Dumpster diving. They have no, looking at their logs on their server, they have no idea that you're going through their garbage. So that's passive reconnaissance. Reddit forums, surfing on Reddit. They have no idea that you're on a Reddit forum looking for information about them. And newspaper archives, another place where they have no idea. They have no idea that being able to do that. But all of these other things that are sending network traffic, DNS query is active. It's a DNS query. You're literally querying their DNS server. They are logging your queries to a DNS server. That's probably the most active. That's a super active one. You're going right to their DNS server to be able to do that. So that's one of those cases where the categorization of active or passive is talking about what can be seen online, what type of traffic is being sent on the network. So the only thing here that someone would be able to see is a ping scan that's going against their servers on their devices. That's one that definitely would be active reconnaissance. And if you chose ping scan, that is the right answer. Let's go through some of these questions in the chat room. Is dumpster diving legal? In some places, it is not. Some countries and in some municipalities, you cannot go into people's garbage. In some, you can. It just depends. I mentioned in my video about dumpster diving that you need to talk to your lawyer before you do something like that, because every jurisdiction is a little bit different for all of those. Would Wireshark be considered active recon? Wireshark, by default, does not send any traffic out over the network, so it would be passive. However, how are you going to get on somebody's network to be able to capture the packets on Wireshark? Your process of getting onto their network is effectively active. So although Wireshark isn't, what got you to the point of using Wireshark is absolutely active. So ultimately, I guess you would have to say yes, that Wireshark, the process of getting to the point of capturing packets would indeed be an active reconnaissance, because you're going to connect to the network, port goes live, you're in the logs. There's an ARP that's sent out, you're in the logs. Everything that's now active. So that would be anything that's you're connecting to a live network. Now, if you're on your network and they don't know you're capturing packets, but how would you get packets from their network if you were on your network? See how that works? That's not in recon at all. You're reconnaissance for yourself. So that's one of those situations, and being able to work through that. If you're watching this for continuing education unit credit, then you need to follow these instructions. I'll send you an email that is digitally signed with this. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then this doesn't apply to you. It applies to you if you're collecting continuing education unit credit. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Click the Contact Us link. In the Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address. Put that this is the November 2020 Security Plus Study Group. Almost forgot there for a moment. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, Wireshark. I know, it's not even on the screen. I just kind of chose that one. Wireshark super secret code word of the month. You can also put whatever you would like into that message that you are sending. I do read through every single one of them, although I am not able to respond back to every single one of them. So hopefully that will help you as you go through this. This is, so that again, go to the top or the bottom of the website, click on Contact Us, put in your name, your email address, November 2020 Security Plus Study Group, and the super secret code word of the month, Wireshark. Wireshark. That will get you to, it takes me about a week to turn those around, but of course that might help you as well. And be able to have that there. Let's do another question. I know we're at the top of the hour. We're going to do another question because I just feel like it, and why not? The next question on our list asks, which of the following would be the best way to validate the results of an IP address lookup? Which of the following would be the best way to validate the results of an IP address lookup? Would that be SNMP-v3, LDAP, FTPS, DNSSEC, or SSL? Which of the following would be the best way to validate the results of an IP address lookup? Would that be SNMP-v3, LDAP, FTPS, DNSSEC, or SSL? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. If you do all that CEU process, you get 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. 1 hour of a webinar category, CEU. That will get you there. Absolutely. You can only collect so many of those, by the way. I think to renew your Security Plus, you need 50 CEUs. You can only collect 10 webinar category CEUs in a single 3-year renewal period. So that will be useful anyway to have that capability. And I'll send you a CEU. It takes me about a week. I have some lined up, so I'll probably do them probably in the next day or two. So feel free to be able to do that. Did I say the 501 is forever? I have no idea what you're talking about, but you're welcome to ask the question again. We can figure out the details. If you did get your cert, you can start collecting CEUs now, although I will tell you that collecting CEUs is kind of played out at this point, that there are much better ways to renew your certification these days than CEUs, but some people still collect them. It's an easy thing, maybe even relatively normal for you to collect these. It's part of what you do in a day-to-day, so why not? Just up for you to be able to do that. In the Security Plus, does it say how many answers have like choose 2 or choose 3? It's just all random. You never know how many you get. It's not a lot. You won't get a lot of questions asking you to choose 2 or choose 3. It's kind of very unusual as far as questions are concerned. You might get 3 or 4 or 5 on an exam. Not a lot on an exam of 90 questions, a maximum of 90 questions or so. So hopefully that will help you as well. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, which of the following would be the best way to validate the results of an IP address lookup? Which of the following would be the best way to validate the results of an IP address lookup? Would it be SNMP-v3, LDAP, FTPS, DNSSEC, or SSL? 64% of you said it's DNSSEC. 19% said SNMP-v3. 10% said LDAP. Then we've got 4% for SSL and 3% for FTPS, way down there in single digits. The real key with this question was what we were doing, which was an IP address lookup. That means that there was a name server query taking place, which means we were requesting information from a name server or a DNS server and having that information come back, which means that's a name server resolution, and to be able to validate or confirm that what the information we're getting from that DNS server is legitimate, we need some way to qualify it, because DNS in itself does not have any type of security mechanism in it. So one of the things that you can do is to enable DNSSEC, to add additional extensions to DNS that will allow you to effectively put a digital signature in your DNS that can be validated by your computer to validate that, yes, the information that you are getting is legitimate. Nobody has poisoned the DNS server. Nobody's put their own IP addresses into this list. This is one where you may want to have a look at that. DNS uses DNSSEC for that name resolution, and anybody who has anything on a DNS server these days should be using the DNS, the domain name system security extensions, or DNSSEC. That is the right answer. 66% of you chose that. SNMP v3 is the Simple Network Management Protocol version 3, and although it is one of the latest versions of SNMP, and it allows you to transfer information over the network in an encrypted form, it has nothing to do with validating the results of an IP address lookup. Usually, it's used to transfer statistics back and forth between infrastructure devices like routers, switches, firewalls, servers, and whatnot. You have LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, has nothing to do with IP address lookups. It's really a database of data, often being used to validate anything relating to an IP address lookup. And then lastly, you have FTPS, which is a file transfer protocol. Again, has nothing to do with IP address lookups. And SSL, which is great for web servers and transferring data that could be protected, but IP address lookups don't use SSL, or up to this point, most of them have not used SSL. We'll qualify it just a little bit, but that's one of those cases where you do run into that and be able to work through them. Hopefully it's one that you would run into as well. So we'll have to figure that out. Yeah, I can see that you've got kind of a poor stream there. So this would probably be a good place as we hit the top of the hour to transition into our after show, and we'll figure this out. It is a problem on my side, and hopefully it'll go away in just a bit. You know how those things work. Everything that we did today come from the CompTIA exam objectives. I told you a number of times about the CompTIA exam objectives. So you can find those at professormesser.com/objectives. Highly recommend you get these. It will tell you everything you need to know about the exam. Make sure you get those. How often do we do these? I'm glad you asked. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar. We do one study group for each one of these courses every month. So I have 2A Plus, a Network Plus, and a Security Plus study group every month. And of course, all the archives are available on my site. The next Security Plus study group is in December on a Thursday. We don't often do Thursday study groups for Security Plus, but because it is the holiday season, I'm sort of skipping the first week of December. We're doing A Plus on the 8th and the 10th. We're doing Network Plus on Tuesday the 15th and Security Plus on Thursday the 17th. Please make a note of that so that you'll know when to come back. And of course, I'll put all of those events and everything on the Facebook. They will be on my website on the calendar. They'll be on my Google Calendar. So they'll be all updated, and you'll be able to get to all of those for this. Also, if you were looking through all of this and trying to figure out where do I go to learn all of this material, of course, all my videos are available for free, but I do have course notes available for the SY0-501 exam. Those course notes will give you all the information you need that comes directly from my videos. So all the text, all the important charts, all of the diagrams that shows you things like DNS amplification is all in my course notes. You can find out about these. They're great to have if you're studying. You've now gone through the videos. You've watched all of those. You've read your book. You've made notes, as many notes as you could, but you realize there's just too much here. You need something else to annotate and keep track of everything that's there. A great thing to have is this PDF. There's also physical versions of the course notes books available. So if you want to get it in a form that is printed out, if you purchase the printed version, I give you the digital one for free. You can get all of that there. ProfessorMesser.com/securitycn is a great place to go to look at the course notes. Another great place to help the website as well. If you like these questions and the entire study group today, please, on that video screen, give the video a bit of a like. It does help us quite a bit. You always hear YouTube content creators beg for likes, and I'm no different, because the folks at YouTube look at those numbers, and in my next meeting with them, they'll ask, hey, are people watching your video? How would we know unless people liked it? So if any of those questions you thought maybe were too easy, too hard, maybe there was something you learned today that you didn't know before, click that like button. It does go a long way. It's an absolutely free way where you can help us and encourage us to create even more videos for you. Stick around for the after show. I will open up the phone lines and take questions from the chat room, and you're able to, of course, follow us on all of our social media sites. There are weekly pop quiz questions. One comes tomorrow for Security Plus on Twitter and Instagram. Go to professormesser.com/Instagram and /Twitter. Don't forget about the course notes, and Security Plus practice exams are available as well. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sticking around. Stick around for the after show too. We'd love to get your questions. I'll be here as long as you care to have me. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Now let's see if I can click the right buttons on my side and get things going. Yeah, I guess you could dislike it as well. If you just thought you hated it, why were you here? If you disliked it, that's always the weird thing about these. I hated this. I stayed an hour and thought it was awful. Okay, rock on. Well, thanks for watching, I guess. Let's host a show. Give me a moment on my side. I'm going to turn the show on so you are able to call in. I will take questions from the chat room as well to have this here. I mean, that's quite a commitment to watch something you don't like. But, I'm fine with that. If that's how you roll, that's whatever. I'm okay with all of those things. Let me see if I can call in on my own show and type in a few things here. What are the buttons I push to make this happen?
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
I'm going to do that if I can remember what it is. How about this nice lady?
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks. That's very kind of you. Thank you for welcoming me. Well, that means that you could even call in as well. You can call in and toll-free number here in the United States. It is 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies, 855-785-7545. If you are outside of the continental United States, you can still call for free. Use Skype because Skype will allow you to call toll-free numbers with no Skype minutes. You just put a +1 at the beginning. Put a +1, 855-785-7545, and you can call in there as well. Some questions from the chat room. What ports do you need to know for the exam? Technically speaking, there are no ports listed in the Security Plus exam objectives. I'm going with that. There are certain ports you probably already know. If you are getting to the Security Plus exam, then you probably had to go through A Plus and Network Plus. So a lot of the common port numbers you should just already know. And I think it probably just assumes that. But one of the things that you'll be, of course, going through as you work through this is that you look at the exam objectives, none are in there. So because they are no port numbers listed in the CompTIA exam objectives, I don't recommend you even bother learning port numbers. You could be spending your time learning something that is specifically mentioned in the exam objectives, which I think would be a much better use of your time than spending time learning something that's not even listed anywhere. I know that is not necessarily what other instructors recommend, but the exam objectives stay very, very close to the actual exam. And I think it's much better to study for things you know are going to be on the exam rather than things that might kind of sort of show up on the exam. You could spend your lifetime studying those things. So I don't know why they go down that road. Another question, are there advantages to doing the exam online? Or no, I guess there are a number of advantages. You don't have to go to a testing center. You can do it at home. But it's not something where you can just pop open your laptop on a whim and take an exam. You have to set up an exam environment. There are strict rules associated with it. All of these rules and everything you have to do are on the CompTIA website. I think they actually send you over to the Pearson VUE website. The OnView is the name of the software. And they give you all the rules and regulations and the way your room has to be set up and all of those things to have there. That's one of those you have to know. Do I have coupon codes for the 501 exam? I don't have voucher codes. No, voucher codes are specifically reserved for people who are CompTIA partners. And I am not a CompTIA partner by design. I do not want to be a CompTIA partner. So I get to talk to you and say what I think about CompTIA's exams without the worry that I have to be a partner of theirs. So I don't know whether that makes sense or not to have that piece of it. But anyway, it's one of those situations. Since security footage could capture a person dumpster diving, would that be considered active? Is the security footage analog or digital? So I guess if it was a digital stored online, we're sort of splitting hairs at that point. If you really feel that there's a camera there that wasn't mentioned in the question, but if there's a camera, maybe we could probably make an argument that's active. Sure, I'll go along with that. Wasn't the question. We're kind of stretching the question a little bit, but that's fine. You're not going to be in that situation on an actual exam where they will stretch the question that way. Let's go back. I see there's other questions in the chat room, but let's go to the phone lines since a number of you are queued up there. And let's start with the 240 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Malik. I'm from Maryland, the 240 area code.
Hi, Malik, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hey, I just wanted to say that I just want to give my thanks to the work that you're doing. I was able to pass my Security Plus exam late October last month.
Congratulations.
And I just wanted to say, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, the videos that you put on YouTube for free. I don't know, a lot of people can go past that, but I just wanted to say thank you because that's just really incredible work, and just very appreciative.
I thank you. It's always encouraging to know the things I'm doing in this dark room day in and day out are actually having a nice effect on people out there. But I will say I did the easy part, Malik. You're the one who actually had to study this material and take the exam. It's not an easy exam. It's a lot to learn in one sitting and be able to put it out there. So congratulations to you as well. I'm more than happy to be just a little part of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Just keep doing. I know I've seen some people here where they were asking you, have you planned on doing a CySa study guide in the future? So I can get that in the way.
It's one of those situations where there's a lot of things on my list. I don't know whether CySa Plus or others will finally be that next thing that I work on. But I do have a lot of things to work on. Some of you are complaining about my background and not seeing what's there. It's all there. The things that I work on in that list, I'm not sure what's next. CySa could possibly be that. I always do pluses and minuses. My background, I have a strong background in cybersecurity and cybersecurity, the market. So that makes sense to go that direction. But there are other things, too, that people are looking at. Right now, I'm focusing on getting through Security Plus. The new 601 is out. I'm working hard on getting content to you. This morning, I was working on the new course notes. They look amazing. I can't wait to start shooting the videos for that. Once all of that is done, and that takes a number of months to get finished, but once all of that is done, then I can finally take a step back and see what do we do next. So it's a good question. I just don't have an answer for you quite yet, Malik, but stay tuned. Who knows?
Right. And lastly, I just wanted to say to any people who are, maybe a little bit worried about their studies on the certification exam, I was just saying, because I didn't start taking practice exams until like 3 days before my exam. And once I took those really, showed me what I was good at and what I knew and what I didn't know. And so just those 3 little exams, and my score got better on every single one if you're doing effective studying on the practice exam. So definitely want to say pay for those for the people who get them. I promise you will feel better about yourself after you do all 3.
That's always, I think, good advice. I love the idea of people doing as much Q&A as possible, and I'm glad that worked for you as well. Congratulations.
Right. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. That's always good to know as well. If you're ever trying to figure out, am I ready to take this exam? Do I really know what I need to know before I walk in the room? I think Q&A is a great way to test yourself. Go through some questions that really have the same or similar difficulty level as the actual exam. So that might be one of those situations where the practice exam is going to tell you if you're ready or not. I think it's also very good at pointing out where you might need more help. Maybe you do better with encryption protocols than you do with processes and procedure. Well, now you know where to study in these last few days before walking in to be able to do that. Back to the phone lines. Let's go to the 513 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name's Andy. I'm calling from the Cincinnati area.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I just wanted to kind of get your take on this. I'm working on the Sec Plus certification. I've got like 17 or so years of sysadmin experience doing all manner of sysadmin sort of stuff. and I've been told by other people, I'm just kind of wanting to get your take on it, the learning curve in transitioning from the sysadmin space to the security space, it seems to me like it covers a lot of the same ground, but it ends up kind of giving it a lot of what the Sec Plus involves is standardizing terminology. And that ends up, what's your thought on that?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I think the thing that always struck me in my particular role in cybersecurity was someone working with next generation firewalls and integrating those, designing next generation firewall systems, and being able to work those into existing security systems. The thing that always I found interesting was that you really had to pull from a lot of different areas to be able to make all of that work together. And I've given these examples in study groups before, but let's take the example. Let's say you're now in charge of the firewall for your organization. These days, all firewalls are next generation firewalls. You're in charge of the firewall, and they wanted you have an old one that you're running. You're going to upgrade it to next gen. You've got one firewall in place. You'd like to put two firewalls so that there's redundancy. Well, now you have to make a decision about, do you do active-active or active-passive? There's probably layer 3 routing is happening on those firewalls. So you have to think about whether you're doing route redistribution on the firewall. It may be that your users are using this firewall as a VPN concentrator as well. That's very common. So now there's encryption algorithms you have to put on top of that. But also, because it's a VPN, an end-user VPN, you now have to deal with IP addressing and IP routing for those end users who are terminating on that firewall, along with, of course, all of the normal traffic that goes in and out of that firewall, probably to the internet. A lot of those tasks that we just mentioned are tasks relating to really networking. There really wasn't there was some operating system knowledge and functional knowledge on top of that, but a huge bulk of it is just network knowledge. With that, as you mentioned, that layer of security plus nomenclature on top of it, this terminology that we use that's layered on top of the of the networking side of things. I also found that there was a very large, broad need for understanding operating systems, especially when you get into things like managing VPNs. You need to understand, how does Windows work with this VPN software? How does Mac OS work with this VPN software? How does Linux work with this VPN software? All three of those are going to be very different. So now you're pulling from sort of a number of different knowledge bases to pull from. I need to know a lot about operating systems. I need to know a lot about the network. There's probably a little bit of database that I need to know. Certainly, I need the security plus on top of that. You sort of put all of that together into one big amalgamation, and that's sort of what makes an IT security professional. There are certain parts of that world that are very focused and centralized. You might have people that are focusing on the SIM, so they're very focused on the logs and the data and the reporting and the compliance. You may have other people are focused on the operations, so they're focused on the firewalls, intrusion prevention rules, making sure the VPN is working properly. Other people may be focused on authentication, so they're worried about the authentication methods you're using, the type of authentication factors that are in use. I think specifically about hospitals, because hospitals have the weirdest authentication factors and very unique environments. You know, all of those are a little bit different, and they have a different focus and a different set of skills that you would have to pull from. And I think you're absolutely right that if you're someone who is wanting to get into security, you're already doing a ton of it as a system admin. You sort of just have to add on all of those other pieces, become an expert in the network, layer on the security on top of that, and you're off to the races.
Thank you.
Hopefully that'll give you some ideas of things you can do to kind of focus on. If you're interested in getting into IT security, that's what I would focus on. We would normally talk to people who are coming in to be a systems engineer, and we would start asking them technical questions, and we would start with kind of the network questions. We wouldn't even talk about security. I talked about this in study groups where we sit down, someone comes in, they want to be an SC, and we'd say, okay, tell me everything you know about ARP. You know, I need to know about ARP. Maybe they have a conversation. It's an open-ended question. Hopefully they now also talk about proxy ARP. They talk about the ARP process. They talk about how reverse ARP might be used, how or not used, as it may be. and situations where ARP, and that sort of leads into other conversations. It's kind of a networking question to lead into the security side. If you haven't spent a lot of time on the network, maybe maybe a Cisco certification is a good step towards working towards that cybersecurity role. Just depends on what makes sense in your particular geography. But if you happen to have a chance to be part of a local security group, there's a lot of local, I put a list of them. Actually, it's in the 601 materials. I'll have to pull that up and get that list there. But there are security organizations that have different groups that meet in different areas of the country. And you might want to get and become part of their group as well. So you can ask the people already doing this job, what do you need to be able to do that job? In our particular area, and if you're in the DC area, the requirement's going to be very different than if you're in the Cincinnati area. So figure out what people in your geography are looking for, and then start putting together a plan on how you can get from where you are to where they would like you to be, and then you'll know exactly the path that you should be taking.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Hey, thanks.
This is one I think that's sort of a challenge. If you've never done the job before, how are you supposed to know what the job is requiring? And maybe that's one of those where you start doing that research. You go out to Indeed, LinkedIn, Dice.com. You start collecting all of the job postings that are out there for a security operations center help desk position or for a security analyst position. You'll start to see those security jobs. You'll start to see them sort of the standard names as you go from place to place, and look to see what companies are asking for. Look to see, do they require a particular set of certifications? Are they looking for a particular amount of time doing a particular role? You'll start to see some comparisons of those as we go through it. So have a look at that. That might help you as well as we go through this. Let's go back to the calls. Thanks for holding. Caller from the 214 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Gladys calling.
Hi, Gladys. What can we do for you?
I'm calling from Dallas, Texas. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you one more time. I thanked you before, and this is the second time because I'm really happy about what you do. And you really helped me have my Security Plus certification, and I passed it. And right now I'm attending some interviews to get a new job. Thank you very much for that.
Nice. Congratulations on your Security Plus certification.
Thank you. If I have to give any recommendation to the people,
please,
to those who are studying right now, because that was my second time. I failed before. I think the reason why I failed is because I failed the performance-based questions. So I think the performance-based questions are more rated. Like, you need to really do good on the performance-based questions. So I would tell them to study a lot more and know everything and be able to understand what is requested in the performance-based questions, because that is the key to the exam. And then to do a lot of practice questions, because I purchased your questions, I purchased your practice questions, and that really helped me a lot. But again, they need to search elsewhere, because that is not the only key. You need to do a lot. Like, I did more than 1,000 questions.
Wow.
You know? So I would advise people to do a lot from your practice questions and others, even the brain dumps. People say the brain dumps are not good, but I think they help. Even if they have the wrong answers, when you know that it's wrong, just continue doing it, and they have some correct ones. So the brain dumps as well, they help me. Yeah.
Congratulations, Gladys, on your Security Plus. And it's like I often say in the study groups, you say you failed your first exam. Well, you didn't pass your first exam, but you didn't fail because you didn't stop. You only fail if you stop, and you ended up continuing on and earning your Security Plus. Congratulations with that, and best of luck on the job hunt as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I
Continue
appreciate
doing what you're doing. That is really good.
That's very
Thank
kind.
you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is very motivating, by the way, to have people say, yeah, we were able to use this material and pass your exam. I will always say, of course, that you did the hard part. I didn't have to go sit and take that exam. You had to sit down in that room and take that exam. That is the hardest part of this entire process. So congratulations to you, Gladys. Let's go back to the phones. We'll go to the 763 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Mark. I'm from the Minnesota area.
Hey, Mark from Minnesota. What can we do for you?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say thank you. Like everyone else, you've been a huge help in getting some of the information that I needed to pass this exam. I haven't taken it yet. I plan on taking it the first few weeks of December coming up.
Oh, great.
My question is, what would you say is the biggest pitfall for people or the biggest objective area that's hardest to get or understand?
For Security Plus, the hardest pieces in here kind of vary depending on the environment you're in. I came from, prior to taking Security Plus, I took Security Plus as my first CompTIA exam. I did Security Plus, then Network Plus, then A Plus for many reasons. But when I took my Security Plus, I was already working as a systems engineer for Network Associates, which is, now it's McAfee. And we had our own firewall. It was a proxy-based firewall, but a firewall nonetheless, the Gauntlet firewall. There was intrusion prevention that McAfee had purchased. There's, of course, the antivirus side of things and the enterprise AV and the management of antivirus. So I had a very good knowledge of the detailed technical base that I needed to be able to get through the technical problems of Security Plus. What I didn't have a strong knowledge of is process and procedure, because that was an area I only worked on very, very slightly when I worked for an insurance company, and especially for things like disaster recovery. We did a lot of DR, but I didn't do a lot of ongoing back-end management of security. And so for me, it was the process and procedure side. I talked to other people, and they say the part that really gave them the biggest problem was the cryptography side. Well, I worked at McAfee. We owned PGP. I was already PGP certified through McAfee. So that part was easy for me. I got the cryptography down. I understood public-private. So it really does vary. What I find that be kind of consistent across the entire exam is I don't think any particular area is more or less difficult than any other. I think they do a very good job of keeping the complexity of these things all at effectively the same level. Not to say that it's at a low level. All of these things are relatively difficult. But I think that it really is going to depend on the individual and your past experience as to the topics that are really most difficult to be able to get through. If you ask people in the chat room, or I sort of hear people talking about all the time, I would say most people say that's cryptography, but that may not be the same for you.
Right. Okay. And one other quick question, because I'm sure most other people here are getting started in security, at least looking into that as an avenue. What would you say would be some advice to getting maybe like an internship or starting out, like what to look for, what to kind of expect, and what's going to help you in that search?
There's a lot of different places you can go with this, and I really fit into the challenge of how you can get a job in IT with no experience. Kind of fits into 4 different elements. One of them is a formal degree. There's certifications. There is some practical experience, and then there's people you know. Those are the 4 elements. Now, in each one of those, there are advantages and disadvantages, or things that are important to know about each one of those areas. But if you go to the Professor Messer website or the Professor Messer YouTube channel, go to professormesser.com/YouTube. I have a video. If you go to the videos tab at the top, the videos option, there is a recent video, not that recent, I have to scroll down a little bit now, on how to get an IT job without experience. This is a video that's 30 minutes long. It's a long video in the world of YouTube. It's a long video. But in the world of me telling you things. It is just chock full of data. It is every minute of this is constant giving of bullets and information and content, more than I could ever say in a study group, because this is just a common question I get in study groups. So that's why I think that's a great place to direct you to, is how to get an IT job without experience. That's the name of the video. That will tell you for each one of those elements what I think someone should work on if they don't have any experience in the industry right now. And I do talk about that practical experience side of things. Where can you go to get practical experience? What if you just have no place you can go to get an internship? You can't volunteer. There are things you can do in your own lab and set up. I even put different projects in this video. Do this project, do this project, do this project. That will give you some practical experience, or ultimately some stories that you could tell people when you finally get to an interview of, here's what I set up in my lab. I set up a firewall and intrusion prevention. And when I plugged it into the internet, here's what I found. In fact, I created some reports from it. Here's what the report showed. Those are things that would at least give you some practical experience for yourself, but it also shows a prospective employer the things you have done with some of these technologies that, by the way, very similar to the technologies they're using in their environment, even if it's not exactly the same firewall, even if it's not exactly the same IPS, the concepts are identical between all of them.
Right. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I really appreciate the work you've been doing. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the call. Best of luck. That, I think, is also another great thing to think about doing. If you're someone who has no experience at all in IT, that's what you should focus on, is maybe shoring up those 4 elements and making sure that you've got as much of that as possible that you can bring to the table. Can help you quite a bit. Back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding for so long. From the Atlanta area code of 770. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, calling from Atlanta. My name is Cyrus.
Hey, Cyrus. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you. I've been watching your videos, and not only are you a great resource, you're really a YouTube legend.
Well,
Just your presence on YouTube has outlasted a lot of people, and you look even better than when you first started. I don't know what magic serum you got going on, but
it's not hard.
You're doing something right.
It's not hard to hang out for 14 years on YouTube and do whatever this thing is. You just kind of hang out and do one of these every week. But I will take someone telling me I look better now than when I started. So thank you, Cyrus.
Yes, sir. And I want to thank you. I got my A+ and my Network Plus, and I'm getting my Security Plus now. And they've all pretty much backboned off your videos and your material. I have a home lab, and
Nice.
I've also done studies with other material. But, I kind of planted where the direction based off your videos. And I mean, like I said, that I got my A+ and Network Plus in 2012 and 2014. And so, I've been following you a long time. I just really appreciate it. It's a very valuable resource.
You're in such a good part of the world for this type of thing too. I'm part of what I used to do as a systems engineer was spend time every week in Atlanta going to the biggest companies that were there and talking to them about security and technology and plugging in our equipment onto their networks. And there's such a wide variety of organizations. There's huge transportation. There is media. There is finance and stocks. There is just everything you could possibly choose from in the Atlanta area. And all of them need technology professionals. You sort of have the best possible mix, I think, in the entire Southeast, or maybe even the country in general where you happen to be. So all of these skills that you're getting with A+, with Network Plus, with Security Plus, you'll be able to walk out the door and make use of those skills immediately in your geography. So you're in a very good, advantageous place for that.
Yes, sir. And a lot of, just to address the gentleman who was speaking about what the Security Plus is, and that it's mostly kind of administrative or, process. That is true. But if you're technical, it makes those technical things click. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say about different certifications, but I just want to speak to everybody in the chat room and who might watch this later. You make of it what you can, and that's what I've done. I've had people who tell me that I've had a waste of time, and if you need to learn the skills, this is a method to do it. Also, it's just nice to throw down a trump card in an interview if that's what's going to set it over the top. It might not always be used. At the end of the day, if you can speak to something, then people will see you as valid. But it's always nice to have a certification in the tuck. So, I really appreciate you, Professor Messer, and keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure I'll stay tapped in.
Couldn't say it any better than that. Thank you, Cyrus. Best of luck. One of the things that I think is important from that, and we sort of miss it. I don't understand a lot of it in our industry. I never want to be that person either, and I hope I've never been that person to other people in my past, is I don't want to be that gatekeeper. I don't want to be that one that says, well, you can't get into this industry unless you do it this way. And I unfortunately see a lot of that on the internet. Probably it just lends itself because people, they would like to explain to other people what they did to be successful in what they were doing or what they think would be successful for you. But the reality is, and Cyrus is absolutely right, is everybody has a different path. And one of the advantages of technology is that the path can be very, very different to get to where you need to go. This is very different than other parts. If you want to be a nurse, there's a very specific path you have to follow and a very specific set of licenses you have to follow to get to that point. If you want to become a lawyer, there's a very specific path you have to follow. IT doesn't do any of that. Technology sort of opens up the world to however you would like to start taking it. My path took me into field support, field repair, kind of moved into corporate help desk. Then I moved into systems engineering for network management, and that took me into systems engineering for security. That's kind of a weird path. That's not the normal path that other people might take. They might take a completely different path to be able to get there. But to Cyrus's point, and this is such a good one, and I mentioned this in my video on how to get an IT job without experience, having the certification is much more valuable in that interview than not having the certification. So everybody can naysay as much as they'd like about what they think is a good cert to have or not a good cert to have. The important thing is that you have one. Figure out the one that makes sense for you. Figure out the one that you like to do the most and do that one. There is no wrong answer. There's only the answers that are right for you. Let's go back to the phones. We will go to the 412 area code in Pittsburgh. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name is Kevin. I'm calling out of D.C., Maryland, Virginia area.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Absolutely. This is my third time calling. I just wanted to say thank you again for all of your videos. I scheduled my exam for the first weekend in December, so I'm a little nervous, but I think I'm trying to buckle down and do some more cramming. But I just had two questions for you, Professor. The first question is, will you be putting out any more Take 10 questions between now and then? And number two, what's the best way that I can study for the performance questions and brush up on cryptography?
Well, let's address the first one. The only thing limiting the number of Take 10 questions is how many of them I give to Lori to put into the Take 10 questions. So that's on me, and I will commit right now. And Lori is watching the replay, so she will make sure I commit to this and getting at least 2 more blocks of those online in the next week so that you'll have something to pull from. That's an extra 20 questions at least, and we may be able to do some more on there. I think that'd be a great thing to have available, and that'd just be more available for everyone to be able to take advantage of those. I just added onto my site. Most people don't notice there's any difference, but I moved the engine that makes all of these quizzes work. I moved to a new engine that works so much better than the old one. Again, this is sort of the back office, inside baseball kind of stuff that I run. And I was sort of holding off adding more things until that's done. Now it's done. I have no more excuses. So I'll go down that road. So your second question was more about performance-based questions on Security Plus and trying to get kind of more stick time, more hands-on with those. It's not easy for those because we don't know exactly what kind of question is going to be asked of you on the performance-based questions.
Right.
What I try to tell people is they're going to stick to exam objectives. So already it's not about the type of information on the question. It's more about how they're asking it that I think people get worried about. But the reality is a lot of these questions are not multiple choice, but they're matching questions. They are questions where you have to put things in a particular order from beginning to end or highest to lowest, whatever it happens to be. Some questions are a little more involved because they'll have you configure different things. One that's in my practice exams book, and I think it's just a common one that I think many people should work on, is configuring an access point with security options. Now, everybody has one of these routers access points in their home, and if you've never gone in there to look at the configuration of those, this is a great opportunity to help study for your potential performance-based question, is look at all the security options. Do you have an option of WPA or WPA2? For WPA2, what options are available to you? There are also on the internet a lot of wireless access point emulators, especially from the manufacturers themselves. So Google up the access point emulators and see if you can find some of those to emulate a Netgear, a Cisco, any one of these many different, a D-Link, different manufacturers, and that would help as well. You can look at all the different options available on an access point that may have more features than yours happens to have on it. But you may not get any questions about access points. You may get questions about removing malware. You may get questions about setting up a smartphone so that the email is secure. I'm just sort of pulling off ideas off the top of my head. Those are things I have to do sort of day to day. So those would be common things to ask for me that I was doing this. You might get a command prompt. Last month in the Security Plus study group, we did a question where I asked you to give me information that you could only get by running security-related commands at the command prompt. That's a great performance-based question, and that would give you a little more hands-on, another idea of what to choose from. Those are a few of the options out there. I don't necessarily recommend looking for the actual exam content, but when people take their exams and put their exam notes in on the CompTIA subreddit, they do a very good job at giving you a high-level idea of things you should study for without telling you specifics of the exam. So that would be another good place to go, is the CompTIA subreddit, and look at the people who have passed their Security Plus. They'll say, it really helped me to know these topics, and that might give you a better idea of things to study as well.
You said the CompTIA subreddit?
Yep. So go to reddit.com/r/CompTIA. Or just type in Reddit and CompTIA into the Google machine. It will take you right there.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Professor. I just I want to say thank you again for taking the time out to make these videos, and wish me luck, man.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Kevin, before you go, because you mentioned you're planning to take this the first weekend in December. So do you find it more motivating to just schedule it a couple weeks out and have a deadline to work towards? Because, of course, you could move that date if you wanted. I think it's a 48-hour time frame. You could move it to something else. Or is it just that you've got a particular thing where you got to get it done that day because there's some other third-party thing that's kind of pushing you? Are you using that date as kind of a driver towards learning the content?
Yes, sir, I am. I originally had it for the 21st of November, but I wanted to, even though I've already done Udemy, like I wanted to go back and get all 141 of your videos. So like I watched all of them, and I wanted to make sure that I got all the necessary material that I needed. So I pushed it out another 2 weeks.
Good.
So I can spend these last 2 or 3 weeks test taking and listening into the study groups and everything. So it definitely did help me to schedule it out. So now I have something to commit to.
That's perfect. I think that's a great way to motivate yourself. It's a great way to kind of pace yourself. And as you found, it's a good way to kind of get a gut check on, am I ready for this or not? Let's push it out another 2 weeks and work on these specific things. It's a great strategy in my mind. It's a great thing. Other people might want to use that same strategy too. Best of luck, Kevin. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you, Professor.
That's one of those things that I would do too, is you plan the exam, you kind of get to a point where you can book the exam. But these exams are not inexpensive. These are pricey exams. So you don't want to walk in and then fail it. You know, failure isn't a big deal. You just take the exam again. There's no harm, no foul. It's not like you have to walk out and they take something from you. You just book another exam and go in. The problem is that it just costs money to book the exam again. That's the only problem with not passing the exam. Is I have to pay again. That's so painful. I got to pay for another exam to be able to do that. So, but if you can kind of get that out of your mind and like, well, if I fail this exam, I have already learned something about the exam experience that I can use next time. So it's a building process. For those in the chat room, we're talking about this earlier. You know, the Security Plus exam is what these days? $320, $350 US. But if you are a college student, you can get an academic price. Just go to the CompTIA Academic Store. Put that into your Google. That is one that will get you the best possible price, but you have to prove that you're in class. You have to prove you're in school. It's not just EDU email. Anybody can get an EDU email. So you have to prove you have classes, that you are an active student, because it's a student discount. Not sure why it kind of passes by people sometimes, but that's another one you should think of doing. It saves you about 50%, like half the cost to do that. Although when I was a student in college, I didn't have half the cost either. So I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Let's go back to the phone lines. Thank you for holding for so long. 202 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, how you doing today, Professor Messer? My name is Brandon Lamb.
Hey, Bryden. Thanks for calling.
Hey, how you doing today, Professor? First of all, big fan, man. Big fan of yours.
Thanks.
My question to you is, I have pretty much all certifications. I have CompTIA Plus, Cyber Plus, Security Plus. My question to you is, I'm pretty sure you get this asked a lot actually. So CompTIA has other exams like the CYSA Plus and the CAS and the Pen Test Plus. Do you plan on making any videos related to those courses, like the same way you did with A Plus, Cyber Plus, along with Security Plus?
I got lots of plans. I got plans all day, Brandon. I got all kinds of ideas of what I'd like to do. I just constantly run up across this physics issue of 24 hours being in a day. It's a valid question, and it's one that I'm constantly mired in. Most of the decisions of what I do are between me and my vice president, who I happen to be married to. I married her first, and then she became my vice president. So because when you create one of these exams, when you create a course like this, just to give you kind of a background of how this process works, is that sitting down to figure out and create a course from scratch. We're not talking about upgrading, a version that you already have, but to create a course from scratch is probably, depending on the course, a 2 to 3 month effort. That's 2 to 3 months of me being in here every day. I like to say I work half days, which is 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. The reality is it's more than that. It's usually 7 o'clock till about 10. So I'm in here creating the content. I'll take a break for lunch. I'll take a break to go do an errand. I'll come back and I sit in here and I just create the content. But that's me doing that full time for 2 to 3 months. That creates a course. That haven't shot any video yet. Right. There's no course notes. Haven't written a practice exam book. That's just sort of building the slideware, if you will. At that point, I usually will make a set of course notes because I find that those are useful for people to have. Even if the videos aren't out yet, they have some notes that they can use for their other studies. So I usually will make the course notes after that. That takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get them in a format that makes sense. That's assuming that beforehand, I've already had my graphics guy work on the graphics and make sure that all of the things we need are available so we can publish it out immediately. Then we shoot video. So the video shooting, interestingly enough, are really kind of the easy part because I'd already built all of the content. I spent months building the content. Right. The video shoots, I would probably sit in here and it probably takes me, in a single day, I'd probably shoot 5 or 6 or 7 videos, depending on the size of the videos and what they're doing. So I'm sitting here talking to the same camera, doing the videos, putting them in. I'll usually shoot in the morning. I'll usually edit in the afternoon. Sometimes it takes me a day or two to get through a day's worth of shots because the video you see usually took twice the amount of time to shoot. So if it's a 10-minute video, it took me about 20 to 25 minutes to shoot because I'll do a take and then I want to change it. So we go back. But that's kind of the easy part. But for a course that is 100 videos and you're shooting 5 a day, it takes you quite a bit of time to get through all of those. So that's another couple of months on just shooting videos. So by the time you're done, you're 5 or 6 months into this. And that's one single course. That's half a year. So, so when I try to figure out what am I doing next, I not only have to figure out what am I going to commit myself to for half a year, but am I making the right decision? Because that's 6 months of a commitment. Will I be able to have the return on that investment that really needs to happen? Because at the end of the day, this is a business. It has to make sure the lights have to stay on. The kids, for some reason, want clothing and shelter and all of the other nonsense. So I have to be able to make sure that all of that gets paid. So I have to pick the right one, I guess is what I mean. So I'm constantly going back and forth on this. Along with that, every 3 years, Security Plus has to be updated. Network Plus has to be updated. A Plus has to be updated. And A Plus is two courses to be able to do that. The Security Plus took about 2 months to get updated, so that wasn't a big deal. I'm working on the course notes now. Those will be done in a week or two. We'll start shooting video. Those should be done by the beginning first quarter of the year. Well, then Network Plus is going to come right around the corner a few months after that. So there's not enough time to squeeze in another course in that time. So it's kind of a physics problem.
Yeah.
But
and last thing, Professor Master, before I let you go, if you don't mind me asking you, I definitely appreciate all the work you do. It's just myself, I like to have A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, and I want to take the CYSA Plus. I'm like, well, I want to watch Professor Master videos. I don't want to watch anyone else. And let's say, for example, if you made hypothetically, right, you said, okay, you know what, I'm going to offer the CYSA Plus and the CAST, the Pentest Plus, but you're going to have to pay for the to watch the videos. And I don't think a lot of people who follow you would mind because you give so much free content, right? So I don't mind paying for CYSA Plus or videos or Pentest Plus videos because, like I said, you offer so much free content, which allow me to get all my certifications. So I wouldn't mind if I had to pay for Professor Master video. So I just want to let you know, sir, you're doing a good job. I definitely appreciate all your help. And you're definitely a star on YouTube. So I just want to let you know that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate you telling me here's what I would love to watch next because that's also useful to me too. Thanks for calling, Brandon.
No problem.
That's one of those things, though, that I don't plan on changing the model. Giving away the courses is kind of the best of this world. So this company was that a very simple thing. We wanted to make a way so that people could get a job or get a better job. That's it. I mean, that's if you want to put together an idea of what we're doing in this company, that's it. there's not really, I'm seeing that my connection is going up and down. So I apologize to those of you that are hanging on, and who knows what's going on with the internet today, but I see the same thing you're seeing, which is buffering and stream status is going up and down. So I apologize for that. It's one of those challenges, but we should be back now. But one of the things that that I want to be sure everybody has access to this content. That I think has been kind of a staple of what we do. So I don't have plans to change that. So at least from this perspective, not really exactly where I'm focusing on is making any of this a pay-for product. I just don't want to do that. So we'll probably continue on making free, and I don't mind doing it free because it maintains itself. I don't have to put videos behind a paywall because it sort of works out. The whole business model, the crazy business model we've come up with, works out fine. So I don't plan on making anything pay for. The other things around it help keep the free things going, and I think that helps everybody ultimately to be able to do something like that. Well, I think considering the internet problems and the fact that YouTube is telling me, I'm barely hanging on to reality, that I think that's probably a good place to start right there. That's the universe telling us that we've hit a normal end of the top of the hour to have something like that there, and I'm going to take its recommendation. Thank you for joining us on the study group today. Thank you for being here in the first hour. Thank you for being here in the second hour as well. I appreciate your questions, your comments, the ideas. I always like to hear your recommendations on what you think I should be doing next, even if I'm able to do that next or not. It goes in my list, and I get to check mark whether that's something people are interested in or not. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.